So I served from March 2013 to September 2014. And I was called to the Argentina Bahia Blanca Mission. Couldn't say that when I read my call, but now I can. And then I served in Argentina. I served in 5 areas. I started off in Olavarria, and then I went to Santa Rosa, Tandil, Mar del Plata, and then I finished off my mission in Carmen de Patagones. And so what's funny is it's a huge mission. It covers parts of 3 different provinces, like the states. And so I served in all of the corners of all the different provinces. So I jumped around a lot, but it was a lot of fun. My mission itself, the northeast part of my mission is the bottom part of the Buenos Aires province. So we don't have the city of Buenos Aires, but like just the south part of that state. And then we have all of the province of La Pampa. And then we have 1 city in Rio de Negro. And so we covered 3 different states, and so our mission was huge. And we always had to cross these weird state borders and everything. But it was a lot of fun because it was kind of hard being moved around to so many different areas because I was constantly on a bus for like 8 hours. And you're not always with people you know. I mean, they try to put you on buses with other missionaries. That doesn't always happen. And so being this little gringo girl riding a bus by myself was so nerve-wracking, and I didn't know where I was going, or I didn't know where to get off the bus, and it was so scary. But it's just really fun because, because you have the Spirit constantly, you are blessed in ways you don't even realize. I think I woke up at the right times, and I was able to ask someone if we'd already passed my stop, and they're like, no, you still have 2 more stops. And one thing I loved about the bus rides was that because they were so long, I was able to talk to people that was around me and even share my message with them, even though I was probably never going to see them again. I could explain a little bit about myself, why I looked different and why I was wearing a dress and had a name tag and everything, and share the gospel with them. And those were probably some of the most fun times I had because there was no pressure, because sometimes you get nervous talking to people because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come see them again, and what if they don't accept the gospel, and da-da-da-da. But I loved those because I was like, I can give them the contact information for the church, and it's up to them if they want to hear it. But I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and sharing my testimony with them, And so I got to meet the most interesting people on the bus. And one huge thing about Argentina is they drink mate down there. And most Americans think it is the grossest thing ever. And I did too when I first got there, but now I love it. And so I remember one time I was riding the bus, and we were probably a good 4 or 5 hours into the bus ride, and I turned around, and this guy gets under his seat and pulls out this mate cup and just starts making a mate drink. And I was like, where did he get that from? And it was just so random how they will drink mate at any point they possibly can, with any break. If they're at work, I swear I saw someone drinking it at church one time. Anywhere they will drink mate because they love it so much. And so we weren't allowed to drink it, but it was a good opportunity for us to kind of explain why we can't drink it and explain a little bit about the rules and everything of the mission. But it's just crazy how easy it is to find points to talk about with people. We would just find things about their culture or their families or just what's important to them and find a way to connect that to the gospel and then just start teaching about it. And I found out that that's one of the best ways to teach the people down there, because you're connecting to them and their culture, and they really appreciate that you're trying to accept them and, try to become part of their culture while you're living in their country. And they had a lot of respect for us because of that. A little bit about history of Argentina is the country itself, majority of the people were actually refugees from other countries. Honestly, the most famous or common one, I guess, would be in Germany when all the Nazis and all the crazy stuff was happening during the war. A lot of refugees took boats down to Argentina, and they just landed and settled different towns and cities down there. So actually in Argentina, there's not a lot of darker skinned people. The majority of them are actually white, and so I didn't feel super out of place. I mean, a little bit because I had, blonde hair and blue eyes and everything. But it was really interesting because people didn't always assume I was from America. I got, people would always guess where I was from, and they thought I was German most of the time, and they would guess all these random countries. But what I thought was interesting was that they didn't have the typical Latino background culture, like you think about in Mexico or Peru or something like that. They don't have those type of backgrounds. And so you'll actually meet a lot of people that still know German because of their families and everything. And because of that, we didn't eat typical Latino food. We ate a lot of pasta and potatoes because that's more of a European thing. And so the culture itself is European based, especially how the houses and cities are set up. They're not set up with like each individual house. It's more of a European style where everything's just like stuck to each other and they just build an entire block, next to each other. And so one thing that was fun was trying to learn how to know when someone was knocking at your door and not knocking next door, because everyone has fences outside their house, and so you couldn't actually knock on their doors. You would have to clap outside of their fences. And so you learned how to figure out if they were clapping at your fence or at somebody else's. And it was really fun because if my companions and I were ever bored in the street, we'd practice our clapping and try different ways to clap. And it was just like one of the things that we did in the streets, because it's not like we had a car and we could play games in the car. But yeah, that's one thing I really liked about Argentina, was learning about their history and their culture, and how it's not the typical Latino culture, but rather everything from Europe, and learning more about European history than South American history, I guess. It was really fun. There were a ton of challenges down there because the country itself is pretty much a Catholic country. And the hard thing is that majority of people are Catholic, but they don't actually go to church. They don't, participate in any of the religious ceremonies or anything. Like on a good year, they'll go for Christmas or something, but they don't actually practice their religion. They just say that they're Roman Catholic and they don't want to hear anything else from a different church. And so that was a huge challenge, was trying to explain to people why they need to actually practice what they believe, and, to help them find the true church, because they were so stuck on tradition. And it was really hard because we even met a lot of people that listened to our discussions. They gained testimonies of the church, but refused to be baptized because they were Catholic. And because of their family traditions, they couldn't be baptized into another church. So that was super hard for me to watch these people gain a testimony of Jesus Christ and of the gospel, and then not be able to enter the waters of baptism. So that was super, super hard for me. And then another challenge, which kind of is the same thing, another big church that's down there is the Evangelist Church. And that was super hard because I can remember at least like 5 or 6 times where an evangelist missionary would try to like smack me with the Spirit. I don't know if you've heard of them doing that, but it is very awkward because I don't believe in that spirit. And so it's super hard to explain to them, oh, I already have the gift of the Holy Ghost, thank you so much anyways. Like, it was really hard to get to know those people because they're so stuck on their church. And one thing I did respect about that church is they do believe they practice what they believe, and they go out and they have missionaries, and it's really similar to our gospel. So I really respected them in that aspect, but at the same time it was really hard because they were so similar to our church. It was really hard to teach the evangelist people the differences between the church and why our church was the true church of Jesus Christ, and how to feel the Spirit in a different way. Because they tend to feel the Spirit very strongly with very loud music and bands and everything, and that gets your adrenaline going, and so it's sometimes hard to tell them about the reverence that we find in our church and everything. So that was definitely a challenge for me, was trying to find a way to teach these people so that they can know how to feel the true Spirit of, Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father, and how to find the true church and how to pray to know if it's true and everything. And then another huge, huge challenge that is found in Argentina is the concept of marriage, because nobody gets married because it is way too expensive and nobody can afford it. And so they'll just live together. And then because of that, it's also really expensive to get divorced. So even if we taught somebody and they gained a testimony of the church and they wanted to be baptized, and so they had to get married to be baptized, the chances are they're both already married to somebody else, but they never got a divorce, and so now they're living together, and they probably already have children together. And so it's so hard because they won't get divorced because they can't afford it, or the marriage was in a different state, and so it's basically impossible if you already live in a different state. And so that was also really hard, was first of all trying to convince them the importance of marriage and why, it's important in the church and everything. But then once they realize how important it is, actually getting them to get married and getting all the paperwork and finding their documents and trying to find a way to get married, it was such a struggle. But it's always amazing to see the chosen ones that actually will go through the steps and do everything they possibly can to get married. And actually, while I was there, I was teaching this family. We ran into some less actives, and we were trying to reactivate them. And it was just at a point in their lives where they really needed the church, and so they just clung to the gospel, and they were so excited to have it in their lives again. And the mom had, I don't think her and her previous partner had ever been married, but they had a couple kids together. And then now she was living with another guy who had been married previously, but he never got divorced. And so it was super hard because they weren't living the commandments, but we were teaching them, and they were like, okay, we'll live it, we'll get married, we're going to do everything we can so that her spouse, but they're not married, could get baptized and so they could be sealed in the temple. And so it was really hard because it was such a struggle for their family to try to get him divorced, and it took months. And while I was there, they never were able to get him divorced, but I've stayed in contact with them, and so they were able to tell me that he did get divorced, and so they were planning their marriage, and they're planning their trip to the temple in a year to get sealed as a family. And so it's just so amazing to see that even though it's such a struggle, that the people that really have a testimony of Jesus Christ, they will do anything they possibly can to be able to receive the covenants that they need, and so that they can be part of the family of Jesus Christ and be sealed as a family. And it's so amazing to see their testimonies grow and just how important that is for them. I mean, if you don't have appointments and if members aren't giving you referrals, the only thing that really is left to do is knock doors, which is probably the least effective way to find people to teach, but it was kind of the resort we were left with most of the time. But when we were able to have members help us, we found the most success in that, obviously, but it wasn't always available to us because in some of my areas, the members weren't as excited to help the missionaries. But it was fun to see in the areas that did have a really good word missionary program, how excited the members were to be a part of it and come tracting with us and everything. They just got so excited about it. And the baptisms in that area were way higher than in other areas that the members weren't really participating in the work with.